It was a cold morning in Dollar Market, Kano, the kind of morning that made the air feel heavier than usual, thick with smoke, sweat, and the unspoken struggles of those who woke up with nothing but hope in their pockets. Amid the chatter of traders, the smell of roasted corn, and the cries of children chasing one another barefoot, a little girl sat quietly under a wooden stall that had long been abandoned. Her name was Asha, 12 years old, but her eyes told stories older than the city itself. Asha had the kind of face that people looked past, not because she wasn't beautiful, but because poverty had a way of turning even beauty into invisibility. Her hair was unkempt, her dress faded beyond color, and her slippers mismatched, one green, one blue. She sat with a small bowl beside her, begging not because she wanted to, but because hunger had no manners. Behind her, a woman hummed softly. Her mother, Mala, who was once known for her laughter, now sat lost in a world only she could see. Some said she had gone mad after her husband's death. Others said she was cursed. But Asha didn't care what they said. To her, that woman was still her mother, broken, but hers. Sometimes, Mala would look at her and smile faintly. "Asha, my star," she would whisper, "one day, the world will know your name." But most days, her words melted into nonsense, swallowed by the noise of the market. Life for Asha was survival in its rawest form. When it rained, they huddled under torn nylon. When it was hot, they waited for sunset to breathe again. She learned how to dodge insults, how to run fast when the market guards chased beggars, and how to make one meal last 2 days. Yet deep down, Asha carried something rare, a quiet intelligence. Each evening, when traders closed their shops, she would pick discarded newspapers and old notebooks from the ground. Under a flickering kerosene lamp, she'd trace the letters she saw, whispering them softly like a song. A, B, C, D. No one taught her. No one cared to. But her mind was hungry. One day, as she watched other children in clean uniforms walk home from school, Asha asked softly, "Mama, why can't I go to school too?" Mala blinked slowly, as if dragging herself from a dream. Then she smiled weakly and said, "You will, my star, when the sky remembers your name." Asha nodded, though she didn't understand. In her heart, she believed her mother's words. Maybe the sky did remember people. Maybe one day it would remember her too. But the world around her was not kind. There were days she faced ridicule. "Go away, street girl," some vendors would shout when she lingered too long near their stalls. Other times, she'd hear mothers warning their children, "If you don't behave, I'll send you to live like that mad woman's daughter." Those words stung deeper than hunger ever could. Yet every time life spat at her, Asha chose silence. She had learned that silence sometimes carried more dignity than arguments. Still, her eyes, they never stopped dreaming. One afternoon, something shifted. It was a particularly hot day, the kind where the sun felt like punishment. Asha and her mother sat under their stall, dizzy from heat and hunger. That's when she saw her, Aunt Lena. Aunt Lena wasn't rich. She was a food seller who ran a small rice stand at the edge of the market. But she had kind eyes, the type that could see pain even when it was hiding. She noticed Asha watching her from afar, the way a hungry child watches food but dares not ask. "Come here, small girl," Lena said, waving her over. Asha hesitated, unsure if it was a trick, but hunger pushed her forward. Lena scooped some rice into a plastic plate and placed it in her hand. "Eat," she said simply. Asha blinked, surprised. No insults, no mockery, just kindness. "Is it for me?" she asked softly. Lena smiled. "Eat before I change my mind." That was the first real meal Asha had eaten in 2 days. As she ate, her mother muttered behind her, half lost in thought. Lena watched quietly, eyes glistening. That single plate of rice did something no sermon could. It reminded Asha what kindness felt like. From that day, Lena began to notice her more. She would ask Asha to help clean after the market closed and pay her with food or leftover change. Slowly, the bond grew, the kind that doesn't need words to explain. For the first time in her short life, Asha felt seen. And at night, when she lay beside her mother under the faded stall, she whispered into the darkness, "Thank you, God, for today." Still, beneath the gratitude, there was longing for something bigger, a chance to learn, to be more than the madwoman's daughter. She didn't know that this longing, this small, quiet desire, was a spark of something divine. Because grace often begins this way, quietly, hidden in hunger, wrapped in hardship, waiting for its moment to be noticed. They say light finds a way, even in the gutter. And for Asha, that light was about to be noticed. Sometimes, it doesn't take a miracle to change a life. Just one act of kindness, offered at the right moment. For Asha, it was a simple plate of rice. After that day, Aunt Lena became more than just a food seller in the market. She became the gentle rhythm in Asha's days, someone whose presence made the chaos of Dollar Market a little kinder. Every morning, Asha would sweep around the food stand before the sun rose too high. She washed plates, carried buckets of water, and helped serve customers who came for Lena's famous jollof rice. Lena noticed how sharp she was, how she counted change correctly, how she remembered faces and prices. One day she asked, "Asha, who taught you how to count?" Asha grinned shyly. "Nobody. I just watch people." Lena laughed softly. "So, you just watched and learned? This one, you're not an ordinary child." From then, she began teaching Asha little by little, how to read prices, how to write her name, how to keep records. For the first time, Asha felt like her mind had space to breathe. One evening, as they closed the stall, Lena called her aside. "Come tomorrow morning," she said. "We'll go somewhere." Asha's heart skipped. "Where?" "You'll see." The next morning, she followed Lena through the dusty roads until they stopped in front of a small school building with cracked walls and faded paint. On the gate, the sign read, "Bright Future Primary School." Asha stared in awe. Children in blue uniforms ran around, their laughter bright and free. Lena looked at her and said, "Would you like to learn here?" Asha blinked. "Me? School? Yes, you. You can help me in the evenings, and I'll talk to the headmistress. Don't worry about fees." Tears filled Asha's eyes. "Andy, I don't have uniform. I don't have shoes." Lena smiled. "We'll find something. Don't worry. Grace will provide." That weekend, Lena came to the stall with a second-hand uniform and a pair of sandals. They were slightly big, but to Asha, they looked like royalty. When she wore them the next day, even the sun seemed to shine differently. She stood in front of a cracked mirror and whispered, "Mama, I'm with school." Mala smiled faintly from her corner, her voice soft and shaky. "My star, I told you the sky will remember your name." The first few weeks of school felt like heaven. Asha sat on the front row, always eager, always listening. Her teacher, Mrs. Njeri, noticed her brilliance almost immediately. She answered questions that even the older children struggled with. She learned to read within a month, and soon she became everyone's favorite. For the first time, she felt she belonged somewhere, not just as a beggar's daughter, but as a person. But just when life began to take shape, change came quietly, the kind that steals dreams when you least expect it. One morning, Lena didn't open her stall. Then 2 days passed. Then a week. Asha waited every day, standing by the school gate after classes, hoping to see her familiar face. Finally, the news came. Someone in the market said Lena had traveled abroad to join her sister. She had left suddenly, and no one knew when or if she'd return. Asha froze. The words felt like a storm she wasn't prepared for. Soon, the school began asking for fees. The headmistress tried to be patient, but the rules were the rules. After 2 unpaid terms, they told her not to come back until her fees were cleared. That day, Asha stood by the school gate long after everyone had gone. The compound was silent, except for the rustling of dry leaves. She pressed her small hands against the iron bars and whispered, "I'll come back. I promise." Then she walked home, her heart heavier than her school bag. Back under the old stall, life returned to what it was. The hunger, the stares, the loneliness. But something inside her had changed forever. Education had opened her eyes, and now, even though she was back in the streets, she couldn't unsee the light she had tasted. She still wrote on scraps of paper she picked from the ground. She still whispered the lessons she remembered under her breath. It was as if she was determined not to forget, not to lose what Lena's kindness had started. One evening, as the call to prayer echoed across the market, Asha sat quietly, tracing letters on the dusty floor with a stick. Her mother watched her silently and asked, "What are you writing, my star?" Asha smiled faintly. "My name and my dream." Mala nodded, though her mind drifted again. But Asha meant every word she wrote that night. She didn't know how or when, but she was sure this wasn't the end of her story. Because sometimes grace doesn't arrive in full. Sometimes it comes in pieces. One plate of rice, one lesson, one act of kindness at a time. And though Aunt Lena was gone, her kindness had planted something that couldn't be taken away. A seed, a spark, a quiet, unbreakable hope. That was how Asha learned her first real lesson in life. The people who feed your stomach may come and go, but the ones who feed your soul, they stay forever. And even though she didn't know it yet, her story was far from over. Because while she sat outside the school fence, watching other children learn, Grace was still watching her too. The year rolled by slowly, like an old bicycle on a rough road. Days melted into weeks, and weeks into months. Asha was back where she started. The market, the dust, the noise. But something in her had changed. She was no longer just another street child. Inside her lived a quiet fire, the kind that refused to die, no matter how cold life got. Every morning, she'd walk past Bright Future School, pretending she was just passing by. But really, she was watching. She missed the sound of the bell, the smell of chalk, the rhythm of lessons. So one day, she found a secret spot behind the big mango tree that stood outside the fence of Kasiwa Crest Academy, one of the finest schools in the area. She would sit there quietly, listening through the wooden fence, trying to catch whatever she could. Mathematics, the teacher would shout. Asha would whisper back the answers from behind the tree. Sometimes she was wrong, but most times she was right. That mango tree became her classroom. The fence became her blackboard. And her heart, her teacher. Days passed. Weeks followed. She started collecting old notebooks that rich students threw away. She'd tear out the clean pages and use them to write. Her handwriting was rough at first, shaky, uneven, but every night, under the dim light of her mother's kerosene lamp, she practiced, over and over, until the letters began to take shape. One evening, a woman passing by saw her writing and laughed. "Look at you," she said mockingly. "You think learning will feed you?" Asha said nothing. She just smiled faintly and kept writing, because deep down she knew knowledge might not fill the stomach, but it feeds the soul. Then one day, everything changed. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind that felt sleepy and slow. The students at Kasiwa Crest had just closed for the day, and Asha was, as usual, sitting under her mango tree, writing quietly. That's when she heard a voice from the other side of the fence. "Hey! What are you doing there?" Asha froze. She looked up and saw a girl peering through the wooden slats of the fence. Her uniform was spotless white, and her braids were neatly done, clearly from a wealthy family. "I'm just writing," Asha said nervously. "But wait, the story's not over yet. If you're still here, that means it's touching you. Don't keep it to yourself. Share, and subscribe to help us keep telling stories that restore faith in humanity." Now, let's get back right in. The girl tilted her head. "You can write?" Asha nodded. "A little." What's your name? Asha. The girl smiled. I'm Layla. At first, they just talked. Short conversations, quick glances, careful laughter. Layla would pass by the fence every day, pretending she was waiting for her driver. But really, she was there to see Asha. One day, she confessed something. I hate mathematics, Layla groaned. No matter how hard I try, I just don't get it. Asha laughed softly. Math is easy, she said. Layla frowned. Easy? You think you're smarter than me? Asha smiled shyly. No, I understand it differently. I can teach you. And that's how their strange friendship began. Between a rich girl who had everything and a poor girl who had nothing but brilliance. Every afternoon, after school, Layla would sneak to the mango tree, and Asha would teach her math using sticks and sand. She explained fractions, divisions, and word problems in ways even Layla's teachers couldn't. Layla was amazed. How do you know all this? She asked one day. Asha shrugged. I listen. I read. I remember. Weeks turned into months, and soon the two girls became inseparable, separated by the fence, but joined by something deeper, understanding. Layla would sometimes bring Asha bread, pencils, and books. She even gave her a proper notebook one day, saying, So you don't have to write on torn paper anymore. Asha smiled and said softly, You're my best friend. Layla chuckled. You're my secret friend. They both laughed, but they didn't know how true that would become. One fateful afternoon, their secret world came crashing down. Layla's father, Chief Baraka Omari, came to pick her up from school unexpectedly. As his car pulled up, Layla was still by the fence, giggling as Asha explained a math problem. Chief Omari stepped out his car and froze. There, in front of him, was his daughter, talking and laughing with a barefoot girl in tattered clothes. Teachers gasped. Students whispered. Asha's heart raced as she stumbled to her feet. Layla turned pale. Papa, I can explain. But Chief Omari raised his hand, not in anger, but in silence. He walked slowly toward the fence, his eyes never leaving Asha. There was something unreadable in his gaze, not disgust, not pity, but curiosity. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm. What's your name, child? Asha stammered. Asha, sir. And where are your parents? My mother, she's sick. We live near Dollar Market. He nodded slowly, still studying her face. Then, after a long pause, he said quietly, Take me to her. Everyone expected him to shout, to drag Layla away, to scold her for mixing with a street girl. But instead, he followed Asha, through the narrow paths, through the market noise, until they reached the broken stall, where her mother lay resting. Chief Omari looked around silently, the filth, the hunger, the hopelessness. Then he turned to Layla, who stood beside him nervously, and said, You see, my daughter, this is what grace looks like when the world forgets. That day, everything began to shift again, quietly, beautifully, like dawn breaking after a long night. But Asha didn't know it yet. All she knew was that for the first time in her life, someone important had seen her, not as a beggar, not as a burden, but as a person. And sometimes that's all grace needs, to be seen. Because grace doesn't always show up in temples or palaces. Sometimes it shows up behind a school fence, under a mango tree, in the laughter between two unlikely friends. Sometimes destiny doesn't announce itself with thunder or lightning. Sometimes it comes quietly, like a man stepping out of a car, curious about a barefoot girl standing by a fence. That was how Asha's life began to change. Chief Baraka Omari was one of the most respected men in the city. A name that opened doors, a man used to people lowering their eyes when he passed. But that day, as he stood in front of the broken stall near Dollar Market, he didn't see dirt or madness or poverty. He saw humanity. He saw a mother, frail, lost, mumbling to shadows. He saw a child, thin, bright-eyed, protective. And for a long time he said nothing. The street had gone quiet. Even the traders watched in silence. Then, in a voice low enough to hush the world, Chief Omari said, "This woman, she's your mother?" Asha nodded. "Yes, sir." He turned to one of his assistants and said, "Call Dr. Kola. Tell him to prepare a room. She needs help." No one moved. People just stared. Asha blinked, unsure if she had heard right. Help? For her mother? Within hours, things she never thought possible began to unfold. An ambulance came. 2 nurses gently lifted her mother from the ground. Not roughly, not carelessly, but like she mattered. Asha followed them, clutching her mother's wrapper, trembling. For the first time, she rode in a car, not a bus or truck, a car with cool air and clean seats. And for the first time in her life, she saw her mother sleep peacefully, without fear, in a hospital bed. Chief Omari stayed beside her. He didn't just drop them off and leave. He stayed. He asked about her mother's condition. He made calls. He paid the bills. When Asha, overwhelmed, tried to kneel and thank him, he stopped her gently. "Stand, my child," he said softly. "No one kneels to grace." That night, as she sat on a hospital bench, watching her mother sleep, Asha whispered to herself, Maybe God didn't forget me after all." The next morning, Chief Omari returned. This time, he came with Layla. Asha ran to hug her friend, tears brimming in her eyes. Layla smiled through hers too. Chief Omari watched them silently, something unreadable in his eyes. Then he spoke. "Asha," he said, "from today, you don't need to hide behind fences anymore. You have a father now and a home." The words hit her like sunlight after a storm. She couldn't speak. She couldn't even cry. She just nodded, slowly, as her heart tried to catch up. When they arrived at the Omari mansion, Asha stood frozen at the gate. The house looked like a dream, tall, painted white, surrounded by gardens that smelled of rain and flowers. Inside, the floor gleamed. The rooms had colors. Curtains, beds, softness. Layla ran inside excitedly, but Asha stayed by the door. Chief Omari noticed. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. She whispered, "I might stain the floor." He smiled, a soft, fatherly smile, and said, "The floor can be cleaned. But you, Asha, you can't be replaced. Come in." That was the first time she ever walked into a house that felt safe. That night, Asha slept on a real bed for the first time in her life. The sheets smelled of soap. The pillow felt like clouds. And when she woke up the next morning, sunlight was dancing across her face. Not harsh, not burning, but gentle. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she remembered. She was home. Chief Omari kept every promise. He got the best doctors from Mala, who stayed under medical care. He enrolled Asha at Kasiwa Crest Academy officially. He bought her books, uniforms, and even a small tablet preloaded with learning apps. But more than that, he gave her something she had never had before, identity. When the headmistress introduced her to the class, she said, "Everyone meet Asha Omari." A hush fell over the room. Some recognized her as the girl who used to sit outside the fence. Others whispered quietly, wondering how the street girl had become part of the chief's household. But Asha didn't hear them. She was too focused on the teacher, too grateful to even blink. When the teacher asked the first question of the day, Asha raised her hand. And when she answered perfectly, the room fell silent. By the end of that week, whispers turned into awe. Teachers started talking about her brilliance. Students began to respect her. Layla, once the helper, now became her biggest cheerleader. Even Chief Omari couldn't hide his pride. Every evening, he would ask her, "What did you learn today?" And Asha would sit beside him, explaining lessons with the same passion she once used on the mango tree. He would nod slowly, smiling, thinking of the strange twist of fate that brought her into their lives. But grace doesn't erase the past. It only redeems it. Sometimes at night, Asha would still wake up startled, thinking she was back at Dollar Market. Sometimes she'd eat too fast, afraid the food might disappear. Sometimes she cried quietly for Lena, the woman who had once given her that first plate of rice. Chief Omari noticed. One evening he told her, "My child, healing takes time. Don't rush it. Even broken things can become beautiful again." She smiled faintly. "Like my mother?" He nodded. "Exactly like your mother." Meanwhile, Mala was recovering slowly. The doctor said her mind was clearing, though there were still days when she drifted away. But she was calmer now. She ate better. She recognized Asha sometimes, calling her by name. And on one of those good days, as Asha sat beside her bed, Mala reached out and whispered weakly, "You look like a star." Asha froze, tears streaming down her cheeks. It was the same name her mother used to call her back when they lived on a stall. My star. In that moment, everything felt right again. As the weeks passed, Asha's story began to spread across the city. The market women who once mocked her now spoke her name with pride. The traders who used to chase her away now told others, "That girl? She used to be one of us." But Asha didn't boast. She didn't even like to talk about it, because she knew the true miracle wasn't that she now had a bed or a school uniform. The miracle was that someone had seen her. Someone had believed she was worth saving. When people asked Chief Omari why he did it, why he helped a random street girl, he simply said, "Because grace doesn't ask if you're qualified. It just gives." And that was the truth. Grace had found Asha, not because she deserved it, but because compassion decided to stop and look closer. And that's what changed everything. Hey, before you go, pause for a second. If the story stirred something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Like it, share it, and subscribe, because that simple act might help another soul remember that hope is still alive.